we start finding our way in certain areas, and so we have a map for that. But then when it comes into a new area, it's, oh shit, I don't have a map for this. Exact same conflict, but it's just a new area of ego that I don't know my way around just yet. One of the times that I found it easiest to connect to my deeper self was those initial few weeks where I stopped eating meat and I went vegetarian. And my whole body was in such a heap that my brain didn't work properly. Yeah. I wasn't really able to think. And it was such a holiday from myself. It was such a holiday from my mind and thinking. Everything just started to simplify and soften around me and within me. Then it got to a certain point where I couldn't find anything in there anymore. I had to figure out, how do I address this? I started taking supplements and things like that, and then my brain kick-started it. But I remember that feeling. It was just this total, not even spaced out, but this kind of just airhead kind of feeling. It was like not being intelligent. So used to my brain having answers, knowing where everything was, that when it didn't have that ability, it just felt like, it felt lovely. Until I couldn't work, then I had to fix it. But it allowed me enough of a space to connect with something in me beyond my mind, beyond my thinking. So what my mind was doing was, it was taking everything that I was reading, it was taking everything that I was listening to and absorbing, and I was trying to do the journey by logic. I was trying to do the journey by intelligence, by my mind intelligence. And if you heard me speaking about it, you would think that I knew what I was talking about. What I was speaking was matching what I had read. It was matching what I had found in books and on the internet and things like that. But the deeper level of experience was missing. So that little holiday of taking my head out of the picture allowed me to find just a little bit of that space within. I couldn't rely on my mind anymore. I couldn't rely on knowledge for my connection. It had to come from a deeper place. That changed a lot of things at that point. I began to feel something that I recognized as happiness. My mind was giving a holiday. I started to feel happy. And then that gave me another perspective, which was how my mind was working against me in my pursuit of happiness or joy or peacefulness. On the surface of it, it looked like my mind was working really hard in my favor. But how that played out looked and felt much more like torturing myself, crucifying myself for mistakes, trying to find all these different principles of ways to live and ways to be in order to fit that and therefore get the effect. It was trying to do everything by logic, working really hard to do it, but failing when it came to that essence of happiness. So I began to recognize just a little bit. It was just a little seedling of realization of the power that the mind has to create our state of being, our state of feeling. I still didn't know I had the option to choose that. So at that point it was either mind on or mind off. Mind on was trying to find all the rules, trying to find the logic, trying to find what led to this, what led to that. How did I get this result? How did I end up here? Trying to work out the whole map of my thoughts in order to unlock everything. The other option was mind off. Mind off I achieved through drinking. Or not eating meat. My brain died. Yeah. or other ways of just tuning out, spacing out. Daydreaming, fantasy world. These were ways that I would use to escape from what my mind was doing. They weren't really productive, but they just gave me enough of a break from my mind that I didn't feel crazy inside. So quite a while later on, I began recognizing, no, that's not true. I began experimenting with the idea that I could choose what I was thinking and then see what happened. Because up until then, I was still trying to find the rules. I was still trying to find the principles of good, bad, right, wrong. Do it this way and not that way for the desired effect. So when I gave myself the option of, okay, well, how about you just do this, Emer? So what was showing up for me was all these different emotions. And most of them were generated by how I was thinking about things, how I was approaching things in myself. And then I gave myself the option to not think in that way. So the option to not create guilt was the first one. To not feel guilty when I made a mistake. That was really hard initially, because every part of me was programmed to feel guilty if I made a mistake. If I did a wrong thing, I would feel exponential amounts of grief about that. Huge punishing if I did something in such a way. When I gave myself permission to just recognize the mistake, okay, you shouldn't have done that, this would work better, and actually let the guilt go, everything changed. I no longer needed to be pulled into that spin in order to get the lesson from whatever mistake I made. And there was a part of me that was still questioning whether, I don't know if this is okay, you're kind of letting yourself off the hook here very easily. But I felt much happier and much more at peace, because I had moved on down the road of, well, just sort it out, just fix it. Apologize to the person, or do it this way, or whatever. Fix, move on, yay. It feels really essential that we explore what the nature of our mind is. Just getting to know, how does this mind operate? How it operates for my benefit and how it operates for my detriment. My detriment was clearly where I leaned too heavily on trying to find the principles, trying to find the rights and wrongs, trying to find the 10 Commandments or the whatever, and live by that. Where my mind was able to operate for my benefit was just finding the best way forward. Identify the issue, identify the mistake, find how you resolve it, move on. Keep the lesson. Took a whole heap of self-punishing out of the equation. When we find that way of, it's kind of like reining in the mind, because otherwise it just runs all over the place. It feels that when we rein it in just the ordinary everyday stuff, it's easier to rein it in when we meditate. Our mind doesn't start to go in loads of different directions. And it starts to get a little bit easier and a little bit easier to find just that point of focus and that point of stillness where we're truly meditating. That meditation space for me feels quite relaxed and quite spacious, and maybe even a little bit tingly, where my mind is more observing than thinking, and just sort of noticing what's going on, but things will be still floating in through my mind. It might be different things about my day, or different, people will come into my mind and I'll just be like, oh, I wonder how such and such is, and maybe I need to contact them today, or expect a call from this person, just processing. That kind of space, practicing that kind of meditation feeling, helped me to recognize a little bit more and more what intuition feels like. It's like it allowed more room for that. When my mind was ruling everything, there was no room for intuition, or hardly any room for intuition. It was there, but I would only recognize it after I had followed whatever my mind suggested, and I realized, oh, that was the wrong one. Actually, I already knew that what was correct. So intuition feels it needs that space. It needs that space that we give ourselves when we rein in the mind. Otherwise, the mind will dominate the whole thing. Intuition is the direct path into our soul purpose. That's how it feels for me. When I work intuitively, it just feels right. It just feels comfortable. When my mind gets in the way, everything falters. Everything feels a little bit unsteady. There's questions, there's fears, there's doubts, all that kind of stuff has room to come in. Intuition is just A to B,